All right, let's have a look and let me know if you're seeing this, and let me know if the quality looks good, if you're hearing me all right. We'll give it a couple of minutes before we start. Yeah, just for everyone to sort of jump on. YouTube is also giving me a message saying the stream quality is poor, so I might have to just try and check those settings. But let me know in the comments if you if it's not sort of showing correctly for you. Right. Let me just check this myself as well. If you... All right, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, cool. Welcome. If you are part of our Discord community, I'm sitting in the Voice One channel, so please join me if you want to ask any questions over voice chat. The audio should come through to the video as well, so it can seem a little bit more conversational. But otherwise, I'm really just going to be spending an hour just checking out Gaea. This is effectively my first time in the software. I know Dax Pandy from a long time ago, and I was part of his early access program, so I saw the software in early phases. In fact, we used Gaea for some of the terrains in the Lego Movie 2. What we actually did was we used Gaea as a just very general height map design, and then we took the height map into Houdini and did most of our work there, because obviously the Lego world needs to be entirely made of Lego pieces. So what we did was basically create I think it's a VBD or VDB. It's basically a volume model, and then the the Houdini scripts that we created would then fill that volume with various Lego pieces. So that was, while I've used the software a little bit in the past, it was a while ago. The UI was very different, and we used it in a very basic sense, because all of this nice erosion that Gaea can do was we were not really using it. Okay, cool. So please let me know if you see any quality issues with the stream. It should be fine, but you never know, and I don't want to just continue on without anyone really letting me know. Alex, if you want to chat, I can see you just joined the voice channel. If you want to chat with me, I'm more than welcome it. Okay, so the idea of this was that I wanted to learn Gaia a long time ago and just haven't really had the time. So I thought I'd do a little live stream to show people how a veteran artist would go about learning a new software, because it was something that I struggled with a lot of programs, and even the it's not even just with 3D or artistic programs. This sort of approach can be used for anything, really. I actually used this kind of approach when MapPaint switched to using Slack as a messaging service, when we onboarded everyone to Asana, which we use for project management. Basically, any new software that I learn, I just try and jump in and break a bunch of stuff. So with that all said, let's jump in and have a look at the preferences of Gaia. So I'm just gonna play around with, or at least just look at some of these. So I guess that's the node styles there. Um, all of these. I like to go through the preferences because it sort of gives you an idea of what's hidden behind the UI. Okay, and then viewport window. That's quite handy, having a floating window. So if you've got two screens, you can have the floating window on another screen. That's actually very handy if you've got complicated graphs. Like, I mean, that's how I would work inside Nuke, is with my preview window on a different screen. That's okay. So let's check out navigation. Right, I already know that some of these things I'm going to change, but it's really just, but this is based on what are you used to using. If you come from Maya as a your base software, if you come from Nuke or 3D Max, Blender, that you can have things that you're used to, and you just want to set it to that. So okay, so this is quite handy. So you can set your settings for what low, medium, and high means. So that's quite good. And then these are my locations. Okay, cool. So because of that 3D rotation thing, I'm just going to see what the... Okay, so I'm holding Alt, and then it's just hold Alt and various mouse movements, which I'm not a huge fan of. With preferences. I do want to invert that. I think.
What's up,
Yeah,
guys?
that's. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, sweet. So I'm just double checking. It's you still with the preferences, right? On the screen.
You'll probably get a little bit of a delay, but I'm back into the 3D
Okay.
viewport. I just inverted the mouse axis. What I might actually do for you guys is I can stream my screen to Discord at the same time. So I'll share my screen for you guys. That way you won't have the lag that you get through the YouTube.
Yeah, it'll be probably better.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let me know if that's all good in Discord as well. Okay. So I've got rotation set up the way that I like it, which is good. Now, what I'm actually going to do is, I saw when I was opening this that there was a bunch of preset terrains. So I'm going to, how do I get those back? I'm going to try and find those presets. Might just close the software and reopen it.
Yeah, I think they're on the splash screen.
Yeah. So this is definitely the easiest way to open quick start. There we go. The easiest way to get started. And something I find with terrain software is that presets can be all that you need, and all you then need to do is just refine them and change the seed so that you've got something unique. I should also caveat this by saying that I was quite involved with World Machine back in the day, so I have a lot of experience with what, say, erosion, sort of parameters there are in terms of talus and fluvial erosion and sediment carry levels and things like that. So I'll probably pick this up a little bit quicker than most people, but All right, let's have a look at the UI now. So up here, it seems I can change my preset, also my automatic preview resolution, which is cool. So obviously that will slow down. And then I guess this is where those that tessellation comes in, which I think, I'm not sure if that's really working for me. Oh yeah. It's just I don't think it's high enough resolution in order to really do much. Yeah, so you can see there, it's just sort of smoothing out that edge from low to high. So that's cool. And then we've got open, new, save, undo, redo. That's good. Okay. And then this is obviously, this list down the left here is where the guts of the program are. So you've got what primitives. I don't know if that's legible for you guys, but certainly I would like that to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And oh no, let's see if that recovers. Yeah, it did. Cool. What was that, Diogo? Oh, I thought you said something. Say again.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, it might have been somebody else.
Oh yeah, it was my mic. I'm gonna mute it. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All good. So, yeah, okay. So, the erosion nodes in here are going to be the main guts of the program. These will be the things that are taking, say, these first generator nodes and turning them into something that looks, you know, a little bit more realistic. Like if I plug that in, so how do I move this? Maybe I just have to wait for that to build. You'll see some alluvium erosion appear on here in a minute. There we go. So if I click on this, I think it shows me the differences. Yeah, so it's very subtle, probably need more iterations, but so here you can see that as with any node graph software, we're passing the previous input into the next one. So what this preset has is this generator, which will be based on so it's a multifractal. So we can set the size. So let me just turn this down to like 0.5 and turn that to auto just to speed things up. So we can change our size of the fractal, which is like the scale. So I guess smaller scale means you're probably going to find more, like this might be 10K across or 20K across instead of 5. And then we can change our gain. Cool. Variation. So I might keep that sort of a bit higher. This looks kind of lunar in style, like a moon surface. And then this warp node, what's that doing? Okay, so this is sort of just distorting the landscape here, so you get a lot of sort of stretching and warping of the landscape. Now, terraces are something that you should be really aware of when you're creating terrains, because almost all the time in nature you'll get some kind of terracing. Because the thing is that terracing is created by a variation in the rock density, and that's something that's created by differences of say the weather patterns, the different sort of foliage that has died and gotten sort of compacted over the years. So if like we typically think of terraces as something like the Grand Canyon, you know, really sort of carved out canyon style terracing. But if you're creating something like a say the Rocky Mountains or some kind of mountain range, you still my recommendation would be to add some kind of terracing. You can see here that this is probably too much. If we were going for like a snowy mountain look, then this would be too much. So you just sort of reduce the spacing, maybe reduce the intensity, just a little bit of terracing, just so that when you add that erosion in, it's got a little bit more detail and a little bit more broken up sort of information to work from. And that's kind of what this preset has done here, is it's warping the terrain, creating terraces around that current terrain, and then warping it again. And this secondary warp is clearly very large scale. So it's not sort of just twisting a little bit, it's really shifting the terrain. So all of this is really just creating the base sort of raw material, if you will, for the erosion to then happen, to occur. So if you imagine this as like a process that happened one by one, which of course it isn't, but in nature, if it happened one by one, we at this point, all the way up to probably this node, I would say, is going to be all like pre-erosion. It's all going to be sort of under the ground happening, with the earth sort of shifting and turning and churning. So let me, I just saw, Marek, I just saw your message about the bad connection. If anyone else is getting a bad connection, can you let me know that it's not just Marek, because it looks good on the YouTube stream for me as well. So
yeah.
Okay, cool. So we got fractal terraces, and then this is interesting. This, not really sure what that's doing. What I'm going to do maybe is I'm going to reset this back to the file opened to see, did that work?
Tiles tileable or no?
I'm not sure. I know that if it's not tileable, then it's definitely a requested. Here we go. So it's experimental tiled output.
Okay.
So that's good. I know that tiling is rather difficult when it comes to erosion, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But let's have a look. I'm just relaunching because I changed a bunch of things, and I really want to see what I'm guessing Dax made this preset himself, but I really wanted to see what this particular stage is all about.
Just a bit curious, does this software uses more GPU power or CPU power?
I'm not sure. I would say CPU.
It's GPU preview.
Yeah, with a GPU preview, but
yeah,
Okay.
it's because obviously this is a 3D viewport, and you do have the ability to. Here we go. So we've got. So that's sort of atmospherics and sun direction, which is pretty cool to be able to just immediately see sort of what your terrain is going to look like. But is there a performance sort of option? Toggle skybox.
I think it's in the preference somewhere, because I know you can switch between CPU and GPU. Maybe he changed it.
Viewport window. Yeah, it might be. It might have been moved somewhere. Hard to say. Maybe resource manager. This. Actually, that just tells us. That'll tell us just the where, like what nodes are using it.
Yeah, I was just curious to see. if it was using more GPU instead of the CPU.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think, yeah.
For the viewport, it's definitely GPU, and basically, if you have a beefy GPU, you can go up to 2K, and you can basically, if you need a 2K map, then whatever you basically create, you can export right away because it's already 2K. If you want to say 4 or 8, then you need to basically calculate it. But your preview, I don't think you can go more than 2. But you have to have pretty beefy GPU for that because it's slow. If the more nodes you have, the slower it gets.
Yeah.
Deceptive.
Yeah. Okay. So this at this point here, it seems to be adding a little bit more detail. It's like a certain type. I've never heard of this this type of erosion, but I'm guessing it is erosion. It's look dev. Okay. And then we have a texture node. These texture nodes are really cool because what you basically do is you set the colors you want to distribute, and then you can set the sort of influences like the slope, soil, chaos, I guess. So, for instance, you don't have grass growing on vertical cliff faces, so the slope would be an indication there. Like you wouldn't have maybe after 45 degrees it would stop growing. So if you are looking to like texture the environment like that, you can do it pretty easily. And I mean, even this from out here, especially as a map painting asset, if this was Prometheus or something, like some kind of alien landscape, this view here is almost perfect. You know, just crank the resolution, get the high resolution texture maps and bring it into Nuke or throw it into Maya or Houdini and do the rest of the lighting process. So I noticed also under here, if I go to statistics, this is super handy because one of the problems I had with World Machine is you'll often just get stuck just sitting there waiting for a node to build, and you then at the end of it you kind of have a general idea of what took so long because of the that it did have the number of seconds, but this is a much nicer way of seeing what node has taken most of the build time. So if it's going to take 2 hours, I can kind of break this down and say, okay, if I can save time on the textures and this anastomosis node, then it could really drastically speed up the render. So I'm just gonna take a minute to see. Somebody said that they can't hear any audio through Discord. Jonathan, what you'll have to do is you are in the voice channel. Maybe just check your voice outputs because it seems everyone else is hearing me through Discord. So hopefully you can get that working. So what else do we have here? Build SAC, resource monitor, manager. Not sure what that's about, but we probably don't need it. Okay. Cool. Okay, so what this preset is doing is creating a generic sort of texture data field, which has all of the texture information here from these two nodes. So we have this texture adding whatever colors and variations here, and then we have a rock map, which is, oh, that's interesting. So how is that being generated? So see how we've got two outputs here. So you've got a flow output and just the standard output. This means that if we were to add I guess a texture, we should be able to plug it into the flow, and this will actually tell us where, basically where does the erosion occur. All of the connections are made, but YouTube just doesn't want to let me stream. So all right, well I'll just have to keep going. Okay, so we've got our cartography map, and what's this light map do? Very interesting. One of the things I love to have from this would be the ability to create a like just high res screenshot render. Maybe it's possible, I'm not sure, but to be able to import a camera, I think you can do that actually. Maybe not. Yeah, I'll have to look further, but the ability to have a camera in here. Oh, it looks like the YouTube thing's back, so that's good. And to be able to just render something straight out from Gaea, because a lot of the time, at least in my workflows, a lot of the time, just having a 4K render for a background would be enough, because I'm gonna overpaint it, and I'm gonna add trees or something else and more atmosphere. So yeah, a lot of the time for me that would be enough, and it would save me from going to taking it into a different rendering software. Cool. So yeah, so that's the cartography, which I guess creates. I think what it does as well is it adds the scale boxes on top of it. So yeah, I think that's it there. And if I was to change a couple of these settings here, simplify, smooth lane gradients. Let's try it. Let's just crank and see what that does. I can't for some reason turn off the 3D view. It's just not letting me. But yeah, I can see there like the extra texture that it's chucking on top, and then I guess if we crank the simplify, it'll make it look like a map, which is actually quite cool for say like a tabletop RPG, for instance. That would be pretty cool. But okay, cool. So to output this, my recommendation would be when working with these sorts of terrains, because they're height maps. There's no 3D information essentially. You've just got height information, and then it's extruding those pixels essentially to a certain height. So another way of putting that is you can't have caves in Gaea. I think maybe Dax. I know that Dax was a long time ago talking about being able to make caves, but then being able to export it through a mesher. So maybe you can do that now, but if you're just doing the sort of stock standard terrain design, I would recommend exporting it not as a mesh, but as a height map, and then taking it into another software, because that way you're not limited by the pixels that you've, by the polygons that you've rendered. Just render the 2D height map and then import that to another software, and you can do other interpolation and warping, because I know programs like Houdini have that ability to to create these sorts of height map terrains as well. So you can import a height map and then do some more work on top of it. Okay, so let's see. All right, I think this cartography thing is just really buggering about with my performance, so I was going to delete it because you can see it's this sort of, the window is going a bit funky. All right, get rid of that. And we might just skip these textures and plug this into something that's nice and light. Okay, so in here, typically I've used 16-bit TIFFs. I've not used a 32-bit TIFF, but my guess would be that, or 32-bit EXR, etc. My guess would be that those would be fine. You just have to work out the pipeline to bring that into your other piece of software. So then here under build, so these are the options, these are the nodes that I've set to export. I guess an output and a mesher are always set to export because that's all they do. And then here this node is denoted by the orange dot. So I'm just going to untick that. And one of the things that's kind of annoying is that as we move around, it's trying to render, the output of that, and then it's changing to this. And so I think we can just force it to show only one, pin. So with the F key, I can select any particular point along here, and I can just press F, and that means I can select all of these other nodes without it actually having to render an update, which is really handy when it's just taking ages to update. Okay, so we got our mesher and our output. What's our mesher say we can export? I guess, do we need to, there we go. Okay, so we got OBJ, point cloud, oh that's quite handy. And then FBX. So you can set your quads, and this is sort of what I'm getting at is here you can set your vertex count, but that's still going to be a subsample of say an 8K TIFF export, which will just have all of the data that the program generates. So that's why I would just recommend doing it as a TIFF, and then generate the 3D model from that TIFF, which is what the software does anyway, and do that at a later stage. Okay, so then we got resolution, so I can go up to 16K. I'm not sure why I don't get that option. I guess maybe because of the version. And range, oh, this is handy. One of the things with 16-bit TIFFs is that you then don't necessarily know what the min and max is, so you've got to rebuild that, I guess, in the next 3D software that you bring it into. So this essentially means that we can just export the raw information, proportional, I guess, scale to the proportions in the terrain definition, which I guess the terrain definition is somewhere in here that we haven't looked at yet. It's probably part of the project properties, but where you can set sort of the overall scale of the terrain. Okay, and then what else have we got? So normalized and remapped. So that's handy. You can just tell it exactly what you need. Okay, and then advanced options, color space. Okay, cool. So okay, so let's let's just close this, and I'm going to open up another quick start terrain. And because there's one thing that I know we can probably do in Gaea, and that is one of the problems with terrains is that you have this edge of the terrain, and sometimes you really want that edge. I mean, that's really cool because that's sort of if you created a bunch of these, you could repeat them down the line. But yeah, like if we're unless we're standing here on the ground and we're looking at only a very small portion of this terrain, you're going to need to either duplicate it or extend it in some way. So let's just have a play around with this and see how he's created it. So he's created a gradient, added a fractal warp, and a shatter. So he's done 2 of these things, and then the fractal warp is getting eroded, and this is your standard sort of stock standard erosion node. So I'm gonna have a look at that in a second, because that's probably the one that I would use the most, at least to start with, and you know explore out from there. Cool. So this shatter node is basically bringing in all of these like harder sort of snow-like features of the terrain, and then he's combining them with a minimum. So what I would probably do is just go through these like this. Yeah, so you can see that maximum and minimum probably do very similar things. And then so you can come up with, really different terrains. Cool. So what that's basically doing is saying where this second input is lower than the first input, then we want to use the second input. So that's that, and then we've got a flow and snowfall and snowfall. So he's got 2 different snowfall nodes here, which just give different effects. And these, again, even though they're not erosion, you can kind of think of them as erosion. I'm not sure if he's got them in the erosion area. No, he's got them in an actual snow area. Because what they're doing is they're piling up little by little. If you were able to watch these get built, in this 3D software, it would be like snowfall. It'd be sort of sampling all around and trying to find the best fit for the next sort of bunch of flakes, I guess. So inside these, we have a duration setting. So they're both set the same. Got an intensity setting, and I guess the difference here is this one has a melt setting of 25%. And that's the only difference, except for this flow input is what is informing the melt options. So I would think that if we disconnect that and just sort of flick between the 2, so here I want to see where I would think that the white is what's informing how much is going to get melted, but it might be the opposite. Yeah, so it is the white. So you can see here in this flow node, we've got basically a map of black to white. So it's basically saying that these white areas, if I'm not incorrect, these white areas are going to get like melted faster, and so that's when you pass it through to the snowfall node, and you've got exposed rock again. So it's probably better to show it in slightly higher resolution, so you can see there, And that's really cool because the way that this works is iterative. That's why you've got this duration setting here. So what it will do is it'll simulate snowfall across the whole terrain, and then it will, I'm not sure what settle thaw means, but is there a way for us to find out by hovering over it? Probably not. So I'm not sure what settle thaw does, but the melt would be is this process, and then it will come back around and it will do another pass. So you get sort of iterative adding of snow, and then the snow line here is obviously if snow is supposed to melt at a certain point, because you're getting down into the sort of foliage and the tree line, then you can indicate that level. What would be good is being able to sort of peter it out a bit, but I'm not sure if we can do that. Slip off angle is quite cool actually. So that's sort of like the grass setting. So let's say let's use this other snowfall, because this one's got a lot more snowfall on it. So let's crank this up and see what that does. Okay, cool. So we've got snow sort of creeping up here. Oops, let's put that back to there. So under advanced, we've got the slip off angle. So we can say that the snow is either, you know, if we're really in the high Alps, like the Tatra Mountains, where just snow gets blasted against the hillside and it just sticks there, then we might crank that right up like this, and then we have that sort of similar effect. But then if we wanted it to fall off, and we wanted to be much more of a sort of soft, pillowy snow that sort of slips down the mountain, then cranking that right back gives us that look. So I mean, you can play with these things for hours. So let's just go back to this erosion node, and again I'm gonna leave that one because there is one particular terrain I've seen in here that I want to open up. So this one here. So this is, I'm going to make this the last terrain, and I'll probably finish in about 15 minutes. But if you guys have any questions, or if you want me to look at something in particular in here, let me know. So what I'm thinking here, like this is obviously a, I've forgotten what these are called, but they like a plateau something. But imagine if we had, say, a mountain here. Let's just generate a new mountain, and let's try and see if we can look at that. There we go. So let's make it so this one in particular just sort of peters out towards the edges, which is great. But what if? Okay, so it seems like we're able to. What I would call it is zeroing the edge. So if you have a particular shape that you really like, but there's details at the edges, and you want to sort of have it so that you can tile it a lot easier, then that zeroing of the edge is the sort of thing that we want to be able to do. So let's see if we can, yeah, so let's take this one as an example. So we've got this terrain, and if we were to put this into our scene, it's not like this is at 0 and these are higher. So we might have some issues with trying to like merge this in with the scene. And I think you can paint in Gaea. I have seen some abilities to do that, but I'm not sure. We could do that, but the other way we could do it is, yeah, here we go.
It's
zero
called draw.
borders. Draw. Okay, cool. Let's check that out too. So first we'll do zero borders. So we've got this Badlands thing here, and then we've got zero borders. So that's bringing the edges right down to zero so that it's a bit easier to blend them in. And this is generally how a lot of the sort of ArtStation terrain models will be done, because it's much easier if you've got nothing at the edges. It's much easier to just blend that into another environment. So let's have a look at, so we got square. Let's have a look at, so we can change the margin. That's cool. Obviously, what it's doing is it's also changing the entire look of the terrain, which is something that you might not actually want, but you know, it can be easier to do this and then create a couple of different terrains than to try and deal with the edges of this. I mean, in this instance, you could maybe, if we plug that into there, can we draw on that?
There is the edit guides, and yeah, there's one.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I see. So what if we go, right, so if I go, I mean, that looks different though. So why is that different? Guides, height, sprawl. Not too sure. Maybe that's... I don't believe it's actually taking that input, so not...
What if you
entirely
plug the Badlands after drawn? Because I think...
yeah, yes, yeah, that's right. That's how it worked with World Machines. So you actually first define the area that
Yep.
you want to that you want to have shape apply, and then you add your effects and your shapes. Cool. So here we can also have, say, a simple eroded mountain as the starting point, or you can just go nothing effectively. Cool. So if we go, let's try height. Cool. So if we look at what is edit guides. Okay, so we painted in here, and it's now generating that. So let's try. So if we just paint in around the edges like this. Yeah, so that's kind of nice because it's actually like zeroing it a lot faster, like rather than smoothing the whole terrain. So we can add some randomization and displace it and force peaks. What does that do? Okay. The one thing I would say here is that it seems to be limiting the gain of this. So if I was to like duplicate this, I have to see why. Yeah, so we've got that there, but then this is actually much lower and almost clamped.
You can
I'm not
try
sure why.
on the level if you go into properties, and there is like those buttons at the bottom on the Badlands, I think. If you go in the Badlands.
Badlands.
And you go to
down here.
And the level, the first one on yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, great.
That
Thanks.
should work.
It's great to have you here.
No problem.
Yeah, that's cool. So this is a great way of creating that that initial edge so that you've got something to actually blend it into. You can see here I've got a little bit of an issue, I think, because I've painted too far towards the edge. So if I remove some of that, if I can figure out how to remove it, so I guess I go 0.
I think that's Switcher, the yellow one. Oh no, yeah, this one maybe. No, am I crazy?
This one. Maybe it is this. Yeah, there you go. So just keep that sort of off the edge, and that should then get removed. It isn't.
It's on the bottom.
Oh, I think I know. Yeah, and at the top, and that's because also I've got the displacement turned on, so it's sort of randomizing the shape a little bit. So this shape that you see here is from this displacement. So if I remove that, it's going to follow almost exactly the shape that I've painted, and then I can sort of add that, and that just gives it a bit more randomization, so that you're not. It doesn't look so man-made. So I just want to remove that from the edges. Cool. So yeah, you can see there that's a lot better in terms of ability to now integrate that with something. And then if we add an erosion, let's play around with this for a bit. So again, let's turn that 2D view off. So I'm going to go for, I mean, that looks pretty cool, but I'm going to try a sort of a canyon style. Because of these sharp edges, it reminds me a little bit of like Tatooine or something like that. So it going with a softer style erosion, like, you know, rolling hills kind of might not really suit this particular starting point. So here we've got our duration. So I guess you can go up to 100% or 50%, and then over that, it shows us a warning. Okay, cool. That's pretty handy. So let's, and then rock softness. So these settings here are effectively going to steer you in two directions with or one of two directions with the erosion node. So you'll either go towards the soft sort of either spiky hills or rolling, like sort of rolling hills, or towards canyons, depending on your rock softness and the strength of the erosion. So if I crank the rock softness up, we should see this get a lot sort of, yeah, there you go. So this sort of looks like a really large scale snow environment now, because we've said to the erosion node that the rock is going to erode very quickly, and so it's flattening out quite quickly. And then vice versa, if we turn the rock softness down, we should get a canyon style effect. So let's see, is that, doesn't seem to be, it's not seeming to want to update automatically, but so yeah, you can see here that we've got much more harder rock, and what you get is also a lot more fluvial erosion, and you get these taluses. So fluvial erosion is effectively the water running over the rocks, and it creates these grooves. So a good example would be, I mean, all of this is pretty much good examples. All of these grooves are fluvial erosion. And anywhere that you see sort of water running is going to be fluvial erosion. And then at the bottom of really deep fluvial erosion